How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. Psalm 84 is it's a glorious psalm of praise and celebration regarding the presence of God. It's long been a favourite psalm of mine. For a number of reasons. It was and is one of the daily meditations of the Northumbria community. It has a wonderful musical setting that I love to sing, that we occasionally sang at the Northumbria community, and certainly I've made churches sing a number of times through the years. And of course, those of you who know me well know that I love my bird watching, and so any psalm that speaks of sparrows and swallows and pools and, well, I'm going to be in my element, aren't I? Actually, it's that I want to begin with, but not necessarily where we want to end. The imagery of the sparrow and the swallow finding a home is imagery that I find very enlightening on the nature of the temple as it might have been in the Jewish scriptures. The idea of the sparrow and the swallow being able to nest in the temple, I think speaks to that sense of wanting to be at home with God. The temple was a place that you went on special pilgrimage. It was a place for festivals and special occasions. It was a place that was demarcated, determining who you were, determined where you could be within the temple. Some parts of it reserved only for certain people, some too holy even for the holy people. Have you ever had that experience of being to a great Christian gathering, maybe a big festival, and you're coming away and maybe you just have that sense that it's not going to be quite the same once you're home? This weekend I've noticed on Facebook that some of us are remembering a wonderful church camp that we had 10 years ago. It's fantastic to remember those occasions. But they're not the thing that we live in all the time. And I guess that the person writing Psalm 84, and Psalm 84 is again one of the Psalms of the Korahites. That's why we've skipped from Psalm 49 to Psalm 84. It's to do with who these Psalms are associated with in the Bible. They write with longing, a longing to be able to stay, to live, to dwell in the presence of God. A few years ago I got to visit Jerusalem, and although you can't now go up onto the old Temple Mount, you can still walk around you can skirt the edges of the Temple Mount, and, well, as the group I was with knew all too well, I was forever looking for the birds that were around. I was looking for things that were different. I was enjoying being in a place where I could see hoopoes and bulbuls and even a Palestinian sunbird. Doesn't that sound wonderful? But near to the temple, I was watching two birds that I know all too well: sparrows and swallows. 2,000 years, 3,000 years later, they are still birds that find a place, find a home within the centre of Jerusalem. And they're exactly the same swallows you get in the UK. They're exactly the same sparrows you get in the UK. Psalm 84 speaks of how wonderful it would be to be like the sparrows, to be like the swallows, and nesting within the temple itself. Dwelling there, staying there, living there. Wouldn't that be good, says the psalmist. And of course the promise of faith in God is that we can dwell with and in God wherever we are. Currently, not permitted much inside our sacred buildings. We instead can encounter God in our gardens, in our armchairs, driving in the car, walking in the fields. We've always done that. But perhaps this time is reminding us of how important those meetings with God can be. Of course we want to gather together with others again, and it will happen sometime soon. But in Psalm 84 we are reminded that that should be our desire, not simply to be with others, but to be with others in the presence of God. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Yahweh of hosts, O Lord of hosts. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than live in the tents of wickedness. I do love beautiful church buildings, and one of the ones I used to enjoy going to and worshipping in whilst I lived in Cumbria was the splendour of Cartmel Priory, tucked away there in the south of the county. Cartmel perhaps more famous at the moment for its sticky toffee pudding, but it's home to a glorious old priory church. Occasionally I got to sing there in the choir stalls, not because I was going to be singing in the choir, but because a friend of ours each year would do a singing workshop to learn new music for Christmas. And sat in those ancient choir stalls at Cartmel Priory, you get a sight of something that most people in the church do not see. It's an inscription above the exit from the choir stalls that is taken almost from Psalm 84. Now, I like to think that this was a piece of inaccurate spelling on the part of the old carver. Maybe it was just a spot of mischief too. But the carver had got this phrase slightly wrong. In the old King James Version, or something similar to it, they had carved, "A day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God, and then live in the tents of wickedness." You see the problem? What we actually have is that I would rather be a doorkeeper than live in the tents of wickedness. Notice what is really going on here. That sense that we'd rather have the presence of God than anything else. Perhaps it's because we know that if we are truly present with God and to God, and God is truly present to us and with us and in us, then we can cope with everything else. We can cope. We know that our prayers will be heard, our desires known, and that our God of goodness, who wills good for all, will hold us, embrace us, protect and guard us. We will be at home with God. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, indeed it faints, for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy to the living God. Amen.